Thank you. There's a good way to explain how some people get excited about events that are happening or possible events that could happen if we collaborate the way we think we can. If the machinery is oiled properly, if the machinery is working correctly, and we make these agreements, then it'll work, because we had to focus on what the problem was. And once we focused on what the problem was, we asked, what does it mean? And once we established what it meant, we then realized what we could do. Three simple things. What's wrong? Why is it wrong? What can I do about it? I shared that technique. I shared that three-step process with Stacey and with the group in the past. Anyway, the thing is, once we have this idea that it's simple to come to a conclusion about the need to collaborate and the focus, where the focus should or should not be by agreement, simple agreement, we can move forward. Okay, that's me over and out. Thank you very much for a good session. And let's all appreciate Stacey. Over.
I'm also logging out, so but yeah, thank you, and just some really amazing insights came up today, so it's really rewarding. And unfortunately, I can't be here next Saturday because I have a thing then, but yeah, I'll be here after that. So the conversation goes on.
Okay, so I guess we're still talking about sensitive information, so I would like it to be paused, if I could, although maybe Sam's already left.
Yeah, I can't really check out if it's being recorded, so.
No, I wish Alex would have went last and been recorded. We'll just have to wait for Sam to come back, I guess. Or say screw it.
Because it's very late here, so I'll check out. And don't forget, we've got barn racing, unbooking tomorrow night. Be there or be square. Ha ha ha. Very funny. You're not a comedian, Alex. Why do you try?
Checkout. Again, I would like people to be supportive of my critical thinking. In as much, maybe you can hold me to account that I am actually not ad hominem anybody in particular or insulting anybody, because that is not cool. Maybe there's some monsters that have existed in our history that we could criticize a bit. I wouldn't feel too bad about. But generally speaking, people in this group aren't those people. I don't think there's any monsters here. So just let it be known that I'm criticizing ideas. And maybe some people don't even like the word criticize. Maybe I'm just trying to understand ideas through critical thinking. How's that? And the more formal I get with that critical thinking, the more important the idea is to be understood. And you got to understand how annoying it is for people to smuggle in black and white, simple thinking when the idea is actually important. So if people are doing a people connection thing, which is great, I think that that's something that that happens. There's no problem with the people connection, but I usually like to do that when things aren't recorded. But like if you have a one-on-one with me that isn't recorded, you'll notice that I have a different type of demeanor, less professional, like no shirt and tie. I'll take my tie off when I'm talking to you. Let's have a drink. Let's talk about this. But while I'm here, I'm more in a respectful mode of everybody that is here. As it's kind of ironic that that's not the feedback I get, but I'm respecting ideas. If people feel hurt and insulted, I would like them to contact me and explain to me why. And I bet you most of the time it's going to be because their idea has been challenged and they don't like it. It doesn't make them comfortable. And if they're a fundamentalist, I'm acting like a demon now. I'm a member of the Satan tribe. Many people have a different view of the word atheist. I think it would be nice to have a working term in the group that we could agree to. Because to me, atheists going nowheres. To me, you got to be a humanist or a Buddhist or whatever to state you have claims. So yeah, I would like to reiterate that insulting people and being sarcastic is not the first tool in the belt. It's usually one where it comes out once the conversation has gotten a little bit more chaotic. And it's still important. If it's not important, just drop it. I find this is important to be understood. So yeah, with respects to that, Sam says, he said that I'm insulting. I think Tara said that it can be insulting. I've even heard Kayla mention about the word insulting, and I don't know if she meant it was me being insulting, but I did reiterate with Kayla that it is ideas that I'm challenging and ideas that are being put upon me, right? Or put upon the group or put upon the world, right? Like this isn't my living room. This isn't my conversation, but I do think I hold a critical thinking map in my brain. Like, is that true? Or should I just be happy about that? Right? Sometimes it's best just to be happy, like Tyra said, when it comes to people's, personal, like if you're doing therapy and somebody says they're religious, if I was a therapist, I would not challenge someone's religion in therapy session, right? Like that's not my business. That's their coping mechanisms, right? But I'm not in a therapy session and I am not somebody's therapist. Although it is interesting how we do end up building a friendly group where we actually do care a lot about each other. And if we do see somebody who seems to be exhibiting some high stress, there are people who will reach out and say, "Are you doing okay?" And that is very important. But that's because we're human. But I feel we're here to talk about ideas, and we can add some human to it, of course, and some music and whatever we want. But I do think everybody comes here with a different appreciation of what the show is. And if they don't see that I'm a critical thinker and I'm going to hold people in the global challenges, collaboration to critical thinking, then I really have no point to be here. It's difficult to challenge ideas and come to agreements, because if we didn't have to, then we'd already agree. So you bring in the fundamentalist thinkers who think that they're going to do this because of that. You can actually challenge them if they say that. I don't see why we shouldn't. If they're just saying something from their coping mechanism about them personally, then it's none of my business, right? We were talking about AI. We weren't talking about somebody's loved one who's gone through some hard time. So the topic does matter, the context does matter. And if people want to turn barn raising into deep dive therapy sessions, then I probably won't show up for those sessions unless there's some reason I find that it actually is enabling conversation. If it's just to make everybody feel better, like jazz, I got a couple of movies saved up I could watch. Now, when I'm talking to people off of recording, it's different. And I don't see why there's a problem with that. That's why I call it a show. And if Sam would come back and stop the recording, I would finish up with the topic that we were actually talking about, where I would note that Tyra asked, and it probably recorded from the last segment, to please not record this. And I would like to thank Sam for stopping the recording, because I have a cognitive bias towards Sam that he wants to record everything. And I suppose in lieu of a good reason not to record it, I agree with him, but these are good reasons to not record things. If something happens during a meeting, we can agree not to put the tape out, the recording out. That's been a big fight in the past for me. for us to have a Zoom account that's not tied to Sam, Doug, or somebody else means that we would have a lot more focus as a group to schedule and have Michael Jewesifitz. And if Sam isn't there, he's not beholden. Sam doesn't feel so leashed, right, to have to do this. So I think that if the group continues on, not only would I like to suggest, just a second, not only would I like to suggest that we're secular, I'd also like to suggest that by default, because there's no reason to bring religion into this unless there's a reason to bring religion into it, right? As a global group. It's not like this is the Canadian conversation or a Quebec conversation or a California conversation. This is a global conversation where I feel that as soon as you start to talk about Christian God, you're going to be alienating all kinds of other people from Islam. Or if I start talking about, the satanic prayers, which are actually, I think that whole satanic thing is just a big trolling thing. They're not actually, the satanic books aren't actually having seances or anything like that. That's black magic, and again, another form of delusion. The Satanist group that's come up in the last little while is to push back against other religions coming in to the secular space. And that's what Alex was talking about, the secular space. So those things are important. I can back them up to Jazz's chagrin. And Alex, and I appreciate Glenn challenged me on the fact I made a claim. There are sloppy, lazy thinking from religion. There's also very good, soulful, helping people in pain and people who are, the meek and the, that I think that's where religion really is something beautiful that comes from the history that we had. But it's all that we had. All of our art, all of our science, all of it comes from religion. There was one time when the idea of to be an atheist was to be mad. I think you could be prosecuted for being an atheist. You probably still can in some places in the world. That is madness. So critical thinking is madness, and we are fighting against that in a global sense. So maybe we can all back away from that a little bit and say, you know what, it is a good idea to be secular by default, because that doesn't block religion out. It just says it has to have its place, not just be taken by default. I would definitely not want to be religious by default, right? And that was the AI that Tyra was talking about. So I guess it's a fig leaf to say, let's have some good global conversations. And if you're going to bring religion into it, then get the group's agreement that it's somewhere we want to go for an hour, because it's better not to talk about it. Go ahead, Tyra.
I just want to say goodbye to you, Colin. Bye, Alex. I'm sorry I didn't really hear your checkout.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's very unfortunate, because I'd rather talk about the other topic. And again, Sam has failed the Zoom protocol by disappearing.
So anyway, it was great talking to you guys. And Colin, if you would like to talk about our friend and have a private conversation with me about that, I'm around all day, and you can reach out to me on Facebook. So cheers, everybody. Maybe see you tomorrow, maybe not. If I don't, have a great week.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. It's just you and I. It's our show. You're on mute.
I said the only difference is Jazz isn't here today. But I do think I do get a bad rap from being a critical thinker here and trying to keep focus, because I think Alex said it really well when in his closing that we can move progress forward if we come to some kind of consensus about what we're talking about. And next week's Michael Jewesifitz. I'm quite excited about that. What do you think about that, Alex?
Oh yeah, for sure. I want to be there. I before the meeting, I messaged him to see if he was going to be there, but he couldn't. So
Yeah.
yeah,
We both talk with him a lot.
I've been talking to him for almost 10 years. Like, it's been a long time. What I was going to say is, I forget what I was going to say. I can't really talk about the other topic there, but
yeah,
there's definitely, I find, like, if I just look at it, say I wasn't there and I watched this video, I would just say there's definitely, the least I could say is that there's something there. Like there's something not necessarily wrong, but I mean, for someone to like disappear, say I'm out of here and like leave, and then, like there's conflict, you know. So I don't think that's a bad thing. Like I think it can be dealt with, but it's hard in a group like where people don't want to make rules, and where like Sam said it many times that like we haven't even come up with agreements yet, you know, like, and it's hard to come to agreements after 3 years. So I find it's hard to deal with conflict. I think of the Esteban thing, like that was never really dealt with. It was just someone made a decision, get him out of here, and then they tried to have him back, and then it was never talked about again. So I think it's important to, like, I think we did a okay job of like addressing the situation, you know. I
Yeah.
don't think anybody is leaving with like a broken heart.
No, I think you have to have a bit of maturity here. And I think you have to respect that people come with different gifts. And so, you know, it is quite fluid, and you can expect that by default, which is not focus. So without rules, the default is lack of focus, which is more about just town square, which is what Sam says this is, which I don't really find a hard thing with, because, you know, you could right now start talking about something that's important to you, like in your history. How do you say that? History
Project.
Yeah, you say it in French though. How do you say it?
I just say history.
Okay, so, you know, there's a lot of interesting things there, and so, you know, and I've heard you present some of those things to me before, and, you know, and you're involved in like sound art as well and visual art, so, you know, you got a lot of stuff going on too. And
I might
I don't call
request
that,
one day to do like a deep dive or something, because I've never done one. So
yeah, no, that would be cool. And, you know, and that's where people get me wrong, thinking that I'm trying to block out those conversations. I'm just trying to stop someone from doing it in the middle of barn raising floor, unscheduled, unagreed to. And I mean like a big unpacking. I don't mind anybody introducing anything. Why should I? That would be arrogant. But when they start to unpack it and just take over the show, I think they should have some cognitive awareness. When they start to make claims that they can't back up, that might not be accepted by everybody, right? Like even my claims of humanism might not be respected by everybody. You know, I don't know, maybe. So we have to be able to deal with those things, and that's why I find it interesting here. But the fact that we haven't been able to, in the amount of time I've been here, that people don't even understand what it means, that about the agreement that I'm looking for with default secularism. They don't even know what I mean by that. And Sam even voted on it without even hearing it. Like, it's recorded. I think it's recorded from the last segment, you know. And I don't think the videos are a good memory, because it's just too much. Like, I think we got to take points and move them forward into documents.
I was going to write about that in Zulip, is that you can't really mine anything from the video unless you do, like you said, with the transcripts in a database, a relational database. Then you can mine something. But from videos, you have to watch it from start to finish and take the gems out. Like, I mean, that's not scalable with the thousands of hours
it's a
of
job.
videos.
It's an unpaid, unthankful job. And I've suggested that people in real time pick out the gems. You know, I'm bad at it too. I got an idea of what would work, but I don't feel like I got the time or the authority to move through with it. But I've done a few examples. And I think that's all that really I should do at this point. You know, I've done a gem of Doug, I think, Sam, a few people. I built the database of the transcripts, right? Sent that to Sam. He didn't reply to what we should use it for. But anyway, it is, I think, someone like Alex Reed, he's got a lot of time to put into this. So he's got a different view of how much we can put into it from what I feel I can put into it. I'm putting my weekends into it instead of playing golf, right? I don't play golf. I could go play the guitar, but I don't have to, I can play guitar anytime. This show is at a particular time. Again, I call it a show because it's recorded.
Hold on.
Yeah. Are you there, Sam? No, I don't think he's there. Well, if you don't have anything to say, Alex, I'll wait till you're off the phone.
Is it okay? Okay.
but
Sorry about that. I couldn't hear you.
I think you brought up a good point about frustrations. Sam calls them triggers. I think triggers is a little too easy. I think they're frustrations because it's multiple triggers over and over again. Like it becomes a frustration, right? Like you keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. That's the definition.
There was this guy, Eric Byrne. He started transactional analysis and he called them games. Games people play is a book he wrote. And it's like when it keeps repeating like that, like it's you got to be getting something out of it. There's a payoff somewhere, like someone, and sometimes it's like you'll have the person that's like the, where they call him the, not the accuser, but like you have like the victim and the, like that the triangle there with the victim and the savior and the other person that's like
the perpetrator.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's a lot of trade-off triangles that are interesting. I heard Eric Weinstein bust one up though there this week. Freedom, what was it? Freedom, did I write it down? I think I did on digitally. It was a good one. I can't remember it right off the hand, but he said that freedom wasn't in the same geometry as the rest of the triangle. So you just can't smuggle freedom into one of the vertexes. It's freedom is a beast. So, you know, but it was a trade-off. But
you watch his pod, like, does he have a podcast or something?
I just saw an interview he had with one guy that I thought there's like about 7 awesome gems in there. Anyway, like there's a lot of stuff we could discuss. And so I take this meeting as either we're going to do an experiment, we're going to listen to somebody, or we're going to give summaries of what we're doing. And I think the advancement that you're saying, like the guy with the book, keep repeating things and something's got to come out of it. I think what's coming out of it might be acceptance of the fact that we do need tools to keep conversation straight. You know, Sam proved that at the beginning from my check-in that I talked about maybe 8 different topics, right? Mm-hmm. And the one that I wanted to bring, there's no way for me to say, like to pick it and say, this is the one I want about that I want to talk about. And that would have been the one that we're recording right now and we can't talk about, right? And Alex came and wanted to do a checkout, so he asked for it to be recorded. And then Sam left, leaving it recorded. So now it kind of put us in a stalemate situation.
Yeah,
I don't agree with. Maybe there's a way I can stop recording.
I would be much more structured in my approach to the discussions. Like I have a totally different approach. And it's one of the reasons I keep coming back is because I want to eventually, like, I think I can contribute, slip in a few ideas, you know. Maybe not, maybe they'll be rejected, but like definitely, like if you want agreement, like if there's no structure, because actually Michael in the one-on-one, that's one of the things Michael Josefowitz, he ended by talking about action items.
Yeah.
I don't know if you watched it, like he goes, and then suddenly then it was the conversation ended, and then like it seems that's like the big trigger, like
what's next?
Like, okay, let's decide on something. It's like no.
Yeah. Well, that's just it. So this map that Sam brought up with all those ideas, or one of my Coggle maps, are pretty well one-to-one, being able to have it as a canvas. The brain is more of a database, so it's an upper level thing. Once you have your categories mapped out a little bit better, then you can take from Coggle, do an export into the brain, right? And then it's more like in a Wikipedia database situation. But the main point I see here is that people are interrupted by these tools. People like Tara, maybe she would agree to it, or maybe she wouldn't. But I know Anna didn't want to see any mind maps. Like, I just want connection, right? So if people are here for different reasons, some people are going to like certain tools and other people aren't going to like the tools. And the tools are imposing, they interrupt, but really I see them as guiding. But nobody wants to be guided by the tool. They just want to talk about what they want to talk about next. Which is
definitely, if everybody's got a different the reason for being there, and they've got a different view of what it is that we're doing, then definitely you're never going to agree. Like there's not going to be a consensus on
unless we are all writing our own chapters and we can navigate to that context, right? And for example, if Jazz wanted to do a day of meditation with the GCC, I would not be coming in to criticize his meditation. I might not even participate, right? But it's scheduled. Everybody wants it. I'm happy. I'm not frustrated by that at all. Like there's people teaching people meditation all over the world today.
Yeah.
Why shouldn't jazz be one of them? So but that means you have to unpack that idea because it's kind of complicated. That's why you need the maps to find out where that person left off. Like Glenn has all kinds of ideas that what he's thinking. Alex has got his you tell two people, they tell two people idea, right? And so and I have the idea of holding the conversation in a map where you can come back to it and say, you know what, I don't believe that anymore, or I don't think that's true. My confidence fell on that statement. And that's a big frustration, I think, in conversation. When you say something and it's recorded, then people can take that out of context. And that's been done to me, I think. But it's very hard to defend it.
Well, like
And
today, it's like, what would someone's impression be? Like, Colin did the damn thing again. He brought his damn religion, and he fucked it all up for everybody, and he's wasted 2 hours of everybody's time.
Yeah, exactly. When I said right after, I'd rather have this conversation. I changed it from religion and science to science and postmodernism, because religion might enter that conversation like a log statement. Somebody says, well, if you do this, then that statement comes out. Everybody sees that in this context. Could be talking about strawberries. We could be talking about anything. That's why when Sam said to me, go start your own show about strawberries and what everybody else wants to talk about, and then just take religion out of it. It's like, why would I want to have a conversation about what everybody else isn't? I'm supposed to be part of a conversation, right? Like, you want me to just clone this and clean it? Like how? I didn't really get his point. He thinks that I've got something valuable to take somewhere else. No, this is the messy conversation that we have to learn to navigate.
One thing though is that I've noticed too a couple of times come up in different places where, like, I'm not sure because I wasn't there in the beginning in the Global Challenges collaboration, if it was like to come up with some sort of governance and solving world problems. Like, I've heard the idea of this scaling like a conversation, including like tens of thousands of people, and like, it's totally not going there. This is not going to scale to 1,000 people. Like, there's maybe 1,000 people in the group, but they're not, like, you're not going to have a conversation on Zoom with like 10,000 faces and be able to have agreements. And like, so how are you going to solve problems if we can't even like come and, I don't know.
Well, yeah. And I think cleaning the space is what we all are. I think what our responsibility would be is to make sure that the conversation spaces as clean and trustworthy as it can be. And I think that's a pipe dream, because as soon as you get into a political conversation, there's generations of ammunition pointing at you.
Yeah.
Like,
maybe it could be done like if there was breakout rooms, like people just coming in. It's like, okay, you got the main, like at the mixer board, like, okay, people coming in, okay, you go here, you go here, you go here, you go breakout rooms.
But you have to have a memory on that. That's the tricky part. And I think less is more. And I think just defining the basic terms, like, it's unbelievable. But what did I realize? That with Doug, I was one step ahead. When I thought I was starting on square zero, he already put me 2 steps ahead. And like, okay, we got to go back and define what it means to have an agreement. Sam and Doug would not even agree on what the word agreement meant. Now they may have.
I saw that.
Yeah, they may have. Like, what a silly discussion. But that's because Doug has a very strict idea of what it is for his being to put energy into something. And I think agreement to him is smuggling in rules that he'll have to follow that he might not agree with. And that, he's a lawyer. So he's thinking in contract terms or something. I don't know. But in order to say, well, are we talking about a contract, or are we talking about a preliminary, statement of interest that we could move forward?
We make implicit like decisions as a group. Like, I mean, it's proof. The proof is in the pudding. The conversation goes in some direction,
Yeah.
Everybody's putting in their 2 cents, and it sort of goes in a certain direction. It goes zigzags and everything. But so I think people are making agreements. On the subject that we can't talk about, there was agreement basically across the board about how the network is about not just conversation, but about caring about each other, and not wanting someone to have harm or whatever. And
I think we bring that as a default as well. Humanist mindset of caring about each other, right? Like we don't have to talk about the fact we're humanists to be humanist, right? So yeah, there is some agreement I think I have with Sam, which is one of the reasons why I like coming here. One of them is coexistence. I think of that as an umbrella term for the group. So if I'm willing to coexist with people who are fundamentalist, what does that look like? Does that mean that I just agree to everything they say? Or
But
does
that's coercion.
yeah, so that's what I mean. Like some people can't be agreed with. And other people talk loosely with their terms, so you can't make understanding. So Sam and I agree that you need a map and define the terms. So coexistence requires a bit of a map and defining the terms. Now we're starting to talk about the show, aren't we?
Yeah, let's go on for 3 hours.
Yeah. Because for everybody out there who don't know, Alex and I have some ideas behind the scenes ourselves about these kinds of things. And so we got the map, we got defining terms, we got agreement on what we all want to talk about, even though it could be anything. So serendipity, I think, is a good thing in this group. But above all, the lack of some type of structure, framework, or rules. Now, we do try a little bit. Like Sam, last little while, he's been doing focus sessions. Carl, the guy with the brain, did one, and I don't know if you saw it, but he went right off into a rant. Like he was pissed off that people wouldn't listen, and he tried to introduce the believing game, and he introduced a tool to get us through the believing game. The tool was the 6 thinking hats.
Yeah.
People couldn't
Lateral thinking.
People couldn't get the tool and the topic straight. They're trying to eat the hammer instead of build a house, right? So, they don't even understand what he's trying to say, and he can't bring it forward because then somebody says, okay, well, there's 6 color hats, one's critical thinking, one's positive thinking, one's solution. You can look up what the 6 hats are. And somebody says, oh, but this color makes me feel a certain way. Like, who cares? Like, that's a derailment, right? And we talked about 15, 20 minutes about how color makes us feel. That's bike shedding in the software world, right?
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. What color's the bike shed?
Right. And then Heiner came in with a more elaborate model with the thinking game, with somebody extrapolated a better thinking game with the 6 hats plus this more context. I really liked it, but it sure as hell didn't get Carl any closer to explaining the believing game or using it. So that's a classic rant. It's like, you don't see Carl get upset very often, and he was frustrated. I feel the same frustration. So, Sam has, to his credit, he's tried many different things, and he's kept the space clean by not imposing rules. But we do need to have some agreements. And if those are called smuggled in rules, then so be it. We need a little bit of order. We need to know that when we're doing geometry, we can refer to Pythagoras. But then when we go on to physics, we're not so much talking about Pythagoras anymore. That doesn't mean Pythagoras is an idiot, right? Doesn't mean Pythagoras is wrong. It means we've changed the context to a different model. And I don't think everybody has that ability to switch models. That's why you need the maps.
Yeah,
you bring up the maps.
Context.
You bring up the maps and they're saying, oh, but I can't tell you how that color makes me feel anymore. And it's like, okay, do we have to stop and back up one more step and say, we're not here about the way colors feel today? And that's what Sam was trying to tell me. He says, well, if you care about the way colors feel, why don't you start a whole new discussion and everybody will come to your conversation about the way things, like, I found that so insulting that he didn't understand that I'm looking for structure and format that we can all agree to, as opposed to me owning everything. The fact that I stick my neck out and say, we need some consensus here, means that to him means Colin wants to do his own thing and it's all about him again, and now he's interrupting again. Right? And
I don't see you as like trying to take ownership of the whole boat.
Well, you should have seen Jazz. Jazz was saying to me, I think we should give Colin his own show and let him talk about everything he has to talk about until he's done talking. Like, I'm being mockery and sarcastic here, but that's because I'm on a 5th stage conversation of Jazz not wanting to be involved in a mature conversation. I find that I'll make the claim that I think maybe he knows it or maybe he doesn't, but he does bully the conversation. And I think Doug bullied the conversation. And that's because I don't think we came to a meeting of the minds what the conversation was
You mean
about.
you mean your one-on-one with Doug?
Yeah, and my one-on-one with Jazz I've had. It's like we
Okay.
didn't agree to what we were going to talk about. I lay a basic statement to get us started, and then they've got a whole thought pattern in their mind, and then I violate that thought pattern. It's like, so it's not really a conversation at all. It's like they think I'm interviewing them for their knowledge. Maybe they think I'm a mapper and I want to map everything. That's not it at all. Like I laugh at people that think that I'm.
You
That's
gotta
what I
have
do.
your navigator hat
Yeah.
and all that in the
So
bushes.
if I was doing that,
binoculars.
if I was doing that, I'd be talking with Jerry McCluskey about the brain, right? And how much I have to invest in the brain. Like how many hundreds of dollars is this going to cost me to do this?
I used to have the brain, and I swear I couldn't do jack squat with it. Like it goes around in circles. Like it's kind of a network graph kind of thing where you go and then it brings up the node and it's connected to other things, and then but you end up going in circles, and I couldn't do squat with it.
It's a big investment, and I
just
consider
use text. Like I just use text. I mean, if I want to scroll back up, I scroll back up. I scroll back down. I put tabs.
but you have that within a document, within a context, right?
Yeah.
Brain is like, give me another context. Like it's the context of everything. So it really is difficult unless it gets like, for example, Wikipedia has the whole Wikimedia, WikiDB thing in behind it, that on its whole ontology, all its classifications.
Yeah.
So that machines can talk to machines about the information that is in Wikipedia. And that's, I think the brain is just one step down from that, which is it's still a database, but it's not as controlled with ontology, right? Like the open project with, I think it's the open, what's the one there, open data project with all the medical ontologies, and it's all categorized. Like, what was that? Using the RDF semantic web, all the
I know that.
Yeah.
I don't know about the specific one you're talking about, but I've looked at a lot of those. I had a friend who's a specialist in, he's a taxonomist, basically. He creates taxonomies. He's a brilliant taxonomist.
Yeah. So, and that's what it takes to not go around in circles, right? And it's a lot of effort to be able to know how to classify things, because you can, we can classify things to a certain amount, but as soon as you bring in another context. So that's what I'm not trying to do with Toggle.
Because what my friend, the taxonomist, his whole thing was, because what you call a folksonomy, you've heard that term before? Yeah. That's like that's what Wikipedia in a sense is slightly a folksonomy, because it was created by people who made decisions, and it kind of just emerged, like self-organized from the ground up. Him, it's more like it's a structured vocabulary from top down, like so if you're navigating, it's like this, it's very structured, if it's not just keywords and like a bag of words or whatever. It's very structured, and he uses faceted ones, so it's kind of complicated there. But
yeah, folksonomy, a user-generated system of classifying and organizing online content into different categories by
the problem with that is what happens with that is you sometimes get you'll get someone will have a category like whatever fantasy land, and then it doesn't get much content, so the way my friend does it is he looks at the data and then he builds a taxonomy based on what you'll look at the context, and you'll build a taxonomy or ontology based on what you got, so that you don't have categories that have like nothing in them,
Well, you're in database land, right? That's database land, sort of.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying Coggle is not a database, right? You can search it, you can export it into a mind map format. So if you are specific about your folksonomy using Coggle, you can keep things straight. And I do try to do that. But I know that it's, for me, most of the maps are individual outlooking. So more personal knowledge management than Wikipedia management, right? The idea is to bring the stuff from Wikipedia into your available data. So you could put a link to Wikipedia in your mind map to take you to that. And then Wikipedia has a whole ontology around that, because I guess it's a difference between low level would be these artistic canvases of ideas, like Sam was doing today with his tool, with the blue background and the boxes. I use Coggle. Then I think the next level up would be an infographic or a document. And the next level up from that would probably be, then you would switch into the brain, which is closer to a database, right?
It's got a visual, like, sort of
It's
veneer.
navigatable. It's a navigatable database, which is a freaking mess.
You double click and it takes you to, it's
way
very,
too involved. Way
it's
too
like a
involved.
graph. Like you got your thing, you take a node and you poop, then you
Yeah,
add stuff.
yeah.
So it
You can do it
branches
for-
out.
you can do it
That's
for
why
note-taking.
you could do it for hours. Like,
Yeah, and you could do it for note taking or a particular topic, but as soon as you try to make Wikipedia out of the brain, like you're saying, you probably were in that position and it just started going around in circles, right? And if
There
it's
was
well
a-
organized, I think they say if you click the first link, legitimate link on any Wikipedia page within, I think it's 7 clicks, you end up back up on philosophy.
philosophy, yeah, it works. I've tried it.
Yeah, not just any link, but the first link of text.
Yeah, because
Sometimes it only takes 3 clicks.
It's just the way it is when you start to describe a topic. You're like, well, this mathematics is, and then
Yeah.
like the organization of knowledge or whatever, like, and then you're like organization, structure, philosophy.
I'm gonna pick one. I'm gonna pick squirrel. Okay, squirrel, Wikipedia. How did it know? Okay, squirrels are the members of the family. Okay.
Yeah, already you're.
Okay, family, hierarchical taxonomic ranks. Okay, biological classification.
Yeah, you're getting there.
In biology.
And what's biology? It's a
natural
science. Natural science.
A branch of science. Branches of science again. Science is from the Latin word. Classical language. It's taking a little longer. Language. Language is structured system of communication, so structured grammar. Ancient, okay, in linguistics. Scientific. So I must have missed it somehow because science gets there really quick,
Yeah,
right?
sometimes it goes in a loop.
Yeah. From Latin, that builds and organizes knowledge. Knowledge is familiar, aware. Here we go. Understanding something such as facts. Fact is occurrence in the real world. So we're way over 9 now. But eventually we will get back to philosophy. Experience. Experience is the process of conscious organizations. Here we go. Conscious, simple, sentience. Capacity to feel. Feeling. Squirrel was a good one.
Squirrel, yeah, you chose a good one.
Sensation of touch. I might not be clicking on the first link either. Touch disambiguation. I don't think that counts. This can't even say that word. The somatosensory system is part of the sensory nervous system.
I'm gonna have to go soon. I'm getting
prove
my
myself wrong.
concentration.
Highly complex, but eventually you end up back at philosophy. That's the way that taxonomy works, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of my point, that critical thinking comes out of philosophy, and some people early on, some of their philosophies were like Zeus, right? And mythology. And I'm saying
they use stories a lot, like to explain things, like Genesis. Like it's funny because I had this old Catholic nun who's like spent her whole life as a Catholic nun, very religious. And she told me, she said, Genesis, that's like, people made that up. She's like, it's just stories. Like it's a mysterious thing they couldn't explain. It's written by humans. Like she believes it's the word of God, but she's told me it's written by humans, like, and it's full of faults because humans wrote it and humans are full of flaws. Like this is a 90-year-old nun.
You can't get anywhere with religion, with an individual or anybody else, because I don't think it's meant to be a way of knowing. I think it's meant to be a way of being. And every being has their own way of being.
It's also like a way of controlling society. Like,
Well, there's the corruption part of it, or assistance part of it. Like some people would say, I'm corrupting by trying to make a rule that we're default secular. Does that corrupt the conversation? I don't think so. I said default. Didn't say that we couldn't change, but we don't open up GCC with a prayer about,
yeah, our Lord.
Yeah. Or let's all meditate for 5 minutes. Maybe that wouldn't be such a bad thing, because I think meditation to me is secular prayer, right? So there you go.
Well, see, a lot of like there's religions like Buddhism that don't. I was gonna write that too in the Zulip. Like, it's not in conflict with science because they don't have deity.
No,
Some of it, if you get in like certain Tibetan Buddhism, and there's a lot of dogma there, but
you said the word dogma. Dogma is thought crimes if you go outside of it, and that is evil. To tell people you're going to be persecuted because of your thoughts, and you better stop thinking it.
well, I mean, look, where is it? It's in Myanmar or something. The Buddhists were killing Muslims and all that. Like,
Yeah.
did you see that? Like, it's like there's supposed to be these peaceful, like.
What is education too? Like, what is intelligence? Like, do people who go around, like, first of all, there's a misconception that the third world is all bleak. There's rich and poor everywhere. Let's figure that out first. Okay, so there's disparity everywhere. Some places it's less. Where there's less disparity, people are more happy, apparently, through hegemonics. Isn't it hegemonics? Study of happiness? Homogeny. I think they measure how happy a society is.
Yeah, I don't know.
Think that's
I don't know what
called.
it's called though.
Yeah, I think it's homogeny, hegemogics or something. Anyway, yeah, it's like it's impossible to get away with it in the moment and know how much you're to value somebody's wisdom based on what they know. So that's a very sticky conversation, and that's what right the middle. That's what I stuck my foot in the middle of today, right? Like, when do you know when somebody's opinions are truthful, valid, and even worth spending our group time on? And Tyra's saying she's willing to spend her time on anything, but I bet you she's not.
Quantum physics.
Yeah, I don't think she's up for for the messiness of that statement, even within our siloed community here, because we're not even opening it up, right? So when I say we're secular by default with religion, I'm hoping that follows through when some Islamic people want to come and join in on clean water project, right? Like, they might be speaking about their God, but they're not saying, if you guys fail this, my God is going to, slaughter.
That's why I brought it back. I brought it to like what they were trying to do in Quebec is make it so that people can't hijack, like in 2 generations, like, like you can't have a theocracy. Like, there has to be secular by default, so that no one can, like, the law is secular, so you can't like create the party of God and then get elected and then change all the laws to.
And I like to reiterate, we're not talking about people here. We're talking about ideas.
Yeah, you weren't attacking
anybody out there
people,
who's triggered by us talking about ideas. Like, if Jazz is triggered and leaves because we're talking about ideas, that just shows Jazz isn't ready to have that conversation. Maybe he's not ready to have the conversation unless he can control the conversation. And I'm saying, as a group, we have to control the conversation, right?
I'm going to have to go because it's going to rain and I want to go get some walking in the sun.
I'm going to do the exact same thing. So enjoy your walk, Alex. It's been the after show with you.
We did an hour after show.
Yeah, it was very cool.
It'll probably get edited out. We won't need these guys.
It'll be here, and I wish, Stacy, if you're listening, I wish you the best, and what I would call come back even stronger than before.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on, but right now it's hard to work with you, Stacy, and I'm hoping it will be easier.
So take care.
Yeah, all right.
See you on the other side.